Bolian tonic water calms the nerves. Joseph Sisko chills some tube grubs for Nog, and Captain Sisko forgot all about Nephi Beaumont as soon as Zoe Phillips moved into the neighborhood. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
We are also joined by a very special guest, Mr. Robert HEWITT WOLFE, writer. And it is a Nog episode, by the way. Malissa Longo joins us. My name is Ryan T. Husk. Today we are doing a review of Deep Space Nine Season 4, Paradise Lost, directed by Reza Badiyi. Is it Reza?
Reza.
Okay. Written by Ira Stephen Bear and Mr. Robert HEWITT WOLFE. This is going to be a great one. How you guys doing?
Good.
Doing well. Doing really good. What an episode.
So much to talk about. Hey, Cirroc, by the way, real quick, I have a surprise for you. Check this out. So we have some friends over at Spitfire Labs that emailed us and said, hey, we're big fans of your show. We want to send you guys something awesome. We'll talk about it more, I think, in a couple weeks might be better, but check this out.
Oh, nice. Wow.
Look at the freaking detail on this.
Wow.
That's pretty cool.
It even has Klingon writing.
Nice.
This one says Warriors in 5. That's a basketball playoffs. Warriors in 5, right?
Yeah. Steph Curry on the back.
And look at this. Yeah. Look at this.
No.
It even has the Klingon symbol in the middle.
It's very
This
nice.
is metallic.
Wow.
It sticks on with magnets.
Wow.
And on the back,
legit.
let me show you the back real quick, and then we'll get right back to this. But I was just so blown away by this.
Holy.
Oh.
Wow.
So we
Nice.
each got one, Cirroc.
That's
I'll show you what yours looks like right now.
Holy smokes.
So we'll let you
So
open
pretty.
that. we'll do it. Anyway, everybody at home, we will kind of go into a little more detail probably in a couple weeks when we do the Sons of Moog. I think that's a great episode to kind of get into that. But they are Spitfire Labs. You can find them Spitfire Labs on Twitter. Also spitfirelabs.nyc, I believe is their website. We'll include it in the description box below. Anybody that wants to get it, just type in 7th Rule 15 and you get 15% off of anything. Dude, I spent like almost an hour looking at their website. It's ridiculous. I hate how amazing it is and how talented artists are. It's unbelievable. It's unreal. But we'll talk about it more in a couple weeks. Just go in the description box below and buy amazing stuff. Let's talk about Paradise Lost.
Wow. Thank you, Spitfire. That's awesome.
It's a husband and wife team, by the way, that does everything. So that's just, it's beautiful. Can't wait to talk more about it.
Yeah, the detail's amazing. Speaking of which, the detail in this episode is pretty amazing. I was watching this episode. It felt like a movie to me.
Yeah.
It's just that good. There's so much to talk about and so much to cover. The performances, first of all, I thought were A1 in this episode. Love the acting between Sisko and Admiral Layton.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know what I noticed too was that the main characters in this, besides Layton and a little bit of Benteen and Jarish Inyo, but the Deep Space Nine team was Sisko and Odo, Jake and Nog, and Joseph Sisko, and they carried the whole thing basically. Besides the other
little bit
characters.
of stuff on the Defiant. Yeah.
Unbelievable, just beautiful.
Great stuff.
So Robert. This is always really great to bring up because you are the son of a man who was in the military. So I always picture whenever there's kind of like these military things, I feel like a lot of this came from you throwing ideas out, or they're asking, they say, what do they do in the military? And there was basically what amounts to be a false flag situation where they created this false flag. And I wanted to know if that was something where that came from, if that came from a historical event or just it was a good plot device.
I think a lot of that was actually from Ron. Credit where credit is due. He has the story credit on it. and I think he might have thought of some of the mechanism for the false flag and how that was all going to work. And I think that's where it all came from. I mean, the stuff I would run by my dad was more like, just the sort of ceremony, like how people would address each other, all that kind of stuff. But Starfleet plays by its own rules too, so that wasn't strictly speaking like always in military traditions. But I feel like Ron came up with this story. I can't remember how it all came together, but I feel like Ron came up with the basic idea for the false flag and all that stuff. And then Ira and I kind of took it and ran with it and turned it into the two-parter, which is why Ron has credit for story on the second part.
Correct. Yeah, I just checked. You're right. That's exactly it.
So I think that stuff, the mechanism and Red Squad and all that stuff, I think came from Ron. But it's been a while. When in doubt, I'll give credit to someone else, though. Why not?
When you're writing for Sisko, he takes these very strong positions on his belief system and the things that he's willing to fight essentially till death. What I just kind of want to know about the process of getting to that point with him and creating that, like, making that the pillar of his stance.
Look, I think we've talked about this a little bit before, where characters are really like a collaboration between the writers and the actors insofar as, like, even if it's not a formal collaboration, even if it's just like, we wrote this for him and did a great job with it and seemed to really respond to it, so we'll write some more things like that, or we wrote this for him and it didn't play that well, maybe we won't write those things for him anymore, which was rare, obviously, but occasionally happened. But I think in the case of him being such a sort of like fierce and committed to his values and, like a sort of a charge ahead, get things done kind of guy, I think that was definitely informed by Avery as we went along. I think Michael's original idea for Sisko was a guy who was a little more hesitant and a little more unsure of himself in certain situations. And you can sort of see that in Emissary. But by season 4, I think the character had grown. And I think we'd also sort of grown in matching that character to the kind of things that Avery just hit out of the park all the time, and he hit this one out of the park. Family stuff, that strong leadership stuff. The guy who can be like do it my way, this is how we're doing it kind of guy in ops, and then invite everybody over for dinner. You know what I mean? That to us was a lot of who Sisko was. And so when this episode shows both sides of that, right? When he's dealing with the security issues, he's one way. When he's dealing with his father and with his son,
right? Yeah,
and even a little bit with Nog, he's another. Although with Nog, he tended to go back to that sort of commander, captain person.
There was definitely a point where he reminds Nog what the situation is. Like, he's like, let me. What does he say, Malissa? I don't know if you remember the scene where he says, I think you're under the mistaken impression that I was asking for a favor. I want names, and I want a name, and I want it now.
Yeah. I like that.
I like that fine line that they have to walk between being comfortable with each other and, friendly, but they're also superior officer and cadet. So those lines can get blurred sometimes, but then it's like, oh yeah, he's my
yeah. He may hang out with you at his dad's restaurant, but when it's time for stuff to get done, you better do it.
Yeah.
That's the stuff I think came a little bit more from my dad, was like, I was not asking you a favor, I'm your dad. You are going to do this thing now, that kind of thing.
And Sisko has a way. Sorry, I was just going to say, and Avery has a way of, like, when he gets into that level, his voice changes. It goes from this to more of a boom kind of. It's almost like operatic. You know what I mean? Like, it just changes. Anyway, what were you saying, Cirroc?
No, I'm agreeing with you. And he ended that statement that you made with "understood, Mr. Nog," and I like the idea of calling him Mr. Nog, which I just, it's the way he said it. It just had so much texture in there. But the scenes between them are great. And the other thing that Avery did in this episode, I thought really well, was play the psychological game with the Red Squad interrogation.
That was
brilliant.
a great scene.
That was so Star Trek right there.
Right, where he basically walks him into revealing everything that he was saying. I love the way you guys wrote that. I just felt like it played so well, and it was believable because he seemed to have known more than what he did, right? And that's how they kind of use these interrogations when the police are interrogating a criminal. They let them know that they know something,
right.
But you got to tell me the rest, right?
Yeah, the guy in the other room already told me everything, so you might as well just admit it.
Yeah, exactly. It's the prisoner's dilemma, right? The first one to talk is the one who gets off easy.
Yeah.
Nowadays, of course, you wouldn't have to interrogate him because he would have live streamed the entire coup.
In real time, right?
In real time.
He would have Snapchatted him sabotaging
Snapchat and see him sabotaging the power grid. The whole thing would be on Parlor.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I'm glad you brought that up because that is one of the things that I think DS9 really stands the test of time on, and that is these themes that still resonate. Like I'm watching this episode and it feels like it was pulled out of the headline today in some way, and I don't know how you guys do that so well. It's kind of remarkable. I know you say you don't have a magic ball and you don't have, you're not looking into the future,
but it keeps happening.
But it keeps freaking happening.
Well, here's the trick. Like, we're not looking at the future. We're looking at the past.
Exactly.
And the sad thing is this crap just keeps coming back, Or we're looking at the present of the time. I mean, what was this, 25 years ago? So that was
96.
96.
January 8th, 1996 was when this came out. So you guys wrote it, obviously, in 95.
Yeah. We were in the middle of the Clinton administration, so things weren't too messy. We're not at that time of the administration, but I mean, there was plenty of we were looking more at the 50s. We were looking at the sort of the witch hunts, the McCarthyism, the premature anti-fascism, as they called the people who were against Hitler before World War II. That whole kind of fear of spies and fifth columnists and stuff like that. So we were looking at history, and as I think I said in the last podcast, I think it felt very scarily relevant in 2001, 2002, 2003.
Oh yeah.
And now it feels relevant again, and that's just, I think, the cyclical nature of history.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Was there a particular person that Admiral Layton was based off? Because I noticed that.
Ooh, good question. That's juicy.
I don't think there really was anyone in particular. I think, I can't think of anyone in particular that we based him off of. I mean, I think it was just sort of this idea of, we wanted to make Layton's the hero of his own story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Layton it believes he's doing the right thing. And that, I feel like, always makes for the scariest villains in some ways, because you could almost see his point. He kind of had a point of view. And that was really where we're coming from, was trying to create this guy who, uncompromising, does what he thinks is best all the time. And there's a danger in that, right? There's a danger that you go off the deep end if you're like that.
And that's part of what makes your writing so great in Star Trek as a whole, is we never see a villain that's just one-dimensional. We very rarely see a villain where you can't at least see where they're coming from, where you're like, okay, they're the bad guy, but at least I understand what their motivation is, That
was really important to us, was, to try to make sure that we understood where all the characters were coming from all the time. I mean, I think there are definitely some characters who are one-offs in one episode who don't seem to be particularly deep, and maybe they have a scene or two, and maybe they're just the villain for an episode. But I think most of the time, especially when we were going to go for these bigger, juicier roles, like a two-parter or someone who might recur, we definitely tried to dig into their psychology.
And I know Malissa right now is thinking, what about Kai Wynn? She sucks all the way through.
No, but you can see where she's coming from.
Yeah,
She's always self-serving, but she thinks that she too is the hero of her own story, and she wants to be the hero of everyone's story. So
whether you like it or not.
Exactly.
Right. I think there was a line where Sisko said, "Oh yeah, and the answer is you." And I think it always comes down to with these kinds of people where they are the only answer to the problem, right? You need me as my ideas. I'm the solution. Whether it's Kai Wynn or this Admiral Layton.
Yeah. Look, right. There's an instinct in human nature, the sort of the strongman instinct, or the white knight, often a white dude in our culture, but a guy who comes in and has all the answers and sort of like is going to fix things and drive things through and make everyone safe and make America great again, or whatever the fucking line is, and we have I think a predisposition to respond well to that, and that's a danger. We want daddy to come and make everything okay. I think there's a very primal instinct to that, and that can be really, really dangerous when it comes to leadership. And I think that's kind of what Layton embodies, is that kind of big man savior in his own mind, but also look in the minds of all the people who are following him. He wasn't doing this by himself. That he had co-conspirators, people who thought he had the answers, and damn the torpedoes in full speed ahead. And
right. And that's why it was so important when they realized, hey, everybody that's a part of this has served with him before. So they were loyal to him. He knew he could trust them. He could say, hey, remember how I got you through that nebula situation back in the day? And you trusted me. And now you have to trust me again. And they're like, you're right.
Julius Caesar, right? I mean, that's who he thinks he is, right? In a way, like the guy who's going to save Rome from itself and from its enemies. But in doing so, destroys everything that, matters about Rome, destroys the Republic to save it. And that's kind of where he's coming from. Look, that's why he brings in Sisko, right? He thinks he's going to win Sisko over too, same as he won over Bettine and all the other people.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All the other people. And it totally reminds me of another Star Trek episode in Next Generation. It has a similar dilemma. And everybody that's watching right now in the chat, in the live chat, what does that dilemma remind you of from the Next Generation? There's an episode where an officer has to choose between his or her loyalty to a superior or to a greater cause. That episode, to me, that it reminded me of, I believe, was called Pegasus. And it was Riker, an admiral comes along that was Riker's captain back in the day. And Riker remains loyal to him anyway. And Picard is kind of stuck in the middle, to where Riker and the admiral aren't telling Picard what's going on. And Riker has to choose, are you loyal to this previous admiral and the chain of command, or are you going to stick with your gut or something like that? And I was kind of wondering, and it's a great episode. Robert, did you have much knowledge of the Next Generation or of original series when you got brought on to write Deep Space Nine? Was there kind of like a blueprint that you guys kind of followed, or?
I mean, certainly, every one of us had seen every episode of the original series many times. I was raised on it pretty much. And then Next Generation, because I wrote that one episode for Next Generation, I watched it eagerly when it first came on, and then I sort of fell off.
Which episode was it?
I wrote Fistful of Datas, which was season 5.
Wow.
I think so.
It was my first job. So when I got invited to pitch, I got back on the horse, and they were rerunning Next Generation episodes at midnight on the local. in local syndication. So I would stay up till midnight every night. And luckily, between when I got invited to pitch and when I went into pitch, I had like a month and a half. And then between the time when I sold the story and when I had to actually start working on it, I had a few more months because of the way things fell out. So for like 5-6 months, I just watched Next Generation every night before bed. And, you know, it gotten way better than when I'd stopped. I stopped watching because I was in grad school and I didn't have time, you know, and I was like, you know, doing my projects and my own scripts, and I just had no time. And so when I went back to it, I was like, oh, wow, this has gotten so much better, you know. And I think I remember Pegasus being a good one. There were just a bunch of them, like season 3, even season 2, Drumhead. I think was maybe even that might have been season 1. But like once I started watching again, I was like, oh yeah, there's a lot of good stuff. And then obviously, you know, Ron and Renee came over from Next Generation, and Ira did a year on Next Generation, and so did Pete. So we always had people who come off of Next Generation on the show. Michael, obviously. I don't know if it was a template, but it was certainly like standing on the shoulders of giants type thing. You know what I mean? Like we knew what had come before, and it was a strong foundation to sort of do our own thing on top of.
Right. It's just really amazing how you guys were able to have part of it was previous Star Trek voice that we recognize and we know and love, but also go in a completely different direction in tonality and theme. That's why to this day I still think Deep Space Nine is the best written series.
Thanks. I mean, look, there's a spectacular writing in all of the shows, and Next Generation and the original series had some terrific writing. And, you know, we always thought of ourselves in some ways as being like trying to be a spiritual successor more even to the original series than to Next Generation, because Next Generation sort of did its own thing. And we sort of tried to lean into some of the more sort of character struggling through real dilemma type stuff that was always part of original series, and to Next Generation too, but there was a little more conflict in the original series, I think might be fair to say, between the various people in the show. And so we sort of leaned into that. I think that was sort of our thought anyway.
Well, we're going to take a super quick break here, and then we're going to get way more into this episode. Really, really a good, great, fun, amazing episode. And we will come right back on the seventh rule. Everybody, welcome back to the seventh rule with Cirroc, Lofton, Malissa, Longo, and Mr. Robert Hewitt Wolfe. Very quickly, here are the trivioids that may or may not have made it. We've got Red Squad is doing some sketchy stuff. Joseph Sisko chills some 2 grubs for Nog. We get a Bolian Admiral, because Bolians are one of my favorite aliens, so I get excited when I see them. Sisko reminds Nog who he is. Admiral Layton loves real coffee, not that fake replicated stuff. O'Brien wants to sit here for a while, maybe go to a bar with Sisko, have a pint, throw some darts. Joseph Sisko reminds Captain Sisko about nephew Beaumont. Now I forgot all about her as soon as Zoni Phillips moved into the neighborhood, and Bolian tonic water calms the nerves. Anyway, great stuff. Lots of fun stuff there.
Yeah, you mentioned O'Brien's performance. I thought he was really good in this as the different version of himself. He seemed more relaxed. He was, I don't know, he played it really well. I enjoyed the shape-shifting O'Brien.
Yeah, it was a fun turn. I remember like us trying to decide who was going to do that part.
Right.
You know, who would we have there doing it? And we went around a couple of times, and we finally just thought that Colm was sort of the most salt of the earth. He would be the least, it would be the biggest departure for him in some ways to have him play a shapeshifter. And that's why we went with him.
Yeah, he played that really well. I also like the line where he mentioned there's only 4 of us.
Yeah.
Right. That's one of those lines that you remember. Like I remember that 25 years later. That's, you know, every once in a while there's like a scene or an image or a line. That's one of them. That was really a good line, really poignant.
It's a great moment. And like, he just delivers it so offhand. And also like, I felt like he was a departure from the other shapeshifters we'd seen too, you know, in that he was just sort of, this particular shapeshifter was a little more gleeful, you know, and a little more kind of like enjoying his work, you know, so some pride of craftsmanship in the chaos he was sowing.
Yeah, I noticed that. The other thing that I thought was really great, Odo and Sisko got a lot of time together on screen, and we got to really see them working together as a team more so than I think we have up until this point. Um, Seeing those two on screen together and delivering their performances, I thought was another win for you guys.
I mean, they're terrific actors, and their scenes together are always great. I mean, again, I say this I think I say this every time, but like the biggest blessing a writer can have is knowing that when they write something that the actor's going to deliver, and that was something that was true for the entire cast. And so it was fun always to put together any two characters that you could think of from the show and put them together into a scene together was always fun. And a lot of times it was really fun to put together people who didn't have scenes together as often as they might. You know what I mean? Like Worf and Garrick, they don't have scenes together very often, but when they do, good stuff, or
Mirror Universe.
Yeah. Oh, look, I mean, again, like you're right. Sisko and Odo didn't interact a ton. I mean, I think he interacts the most with Jake, probably the second most with Kira, and I bet the third most is probably Dax. And then probably Bashir, and maybe then and then when you add Worf, so he probably interacts with Odo almost the least of anybody. And so it's great when you get them in scenes together because they're just like two, it's like two heavyweights. Going at each other a little bit, It's great.
Yeah. So that
my
was
favorite line. Odo saying, "Everything I know, I learned from Quark." I love that you slid that in there.
That's a better trivioid than any of the ones I picked.
Well, it's it's true though, right? Like all the devious, underhanded stuff he knows how to do, he probably did learn from watching Quark do all of it. Like, well, he was shapeshifted into a mouse or some stuff. Like watching him from the shadows. Like, I'm gonna bust him for this one. Nah, I'll get him in the next one.
I'll wait.
Right. Steel sharpens steel.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
So, speaking of good duos, we also had, of course, Jake and Nog together. A little less than in the first episode of the two, but it's just so great seeing them featured prominently in an episode that only features 4 or 5 of the characters. Usually there's the whole cast or the whole ensemble, but this really was, Jake, Nog, Sisko, Odo, and Joseph. Malissa, did you have any thoughts on the fun of Jake and Nog, or Nog being the cadet bringing in whatever his name was, Shepard?
No, I really liked Nog's role in this, in that he is the enthusiastic cadet wanting to move forward up in the ranks, and I love how naive he is still. Not picking up on the fact that Sisko is looking for a name for a reason, and not picking up on the fact that Admiral Layton coming into Sisko's cafe is not necessarily a good thing. And he's still thinking, oh, this is my way into Red Squad. This is my way into Red Squad. But not picking up on the dangers that are necessarily around him. And I think it's a good stepping stone in his journey to see. He's grown up from the original rascally little dude to this guy who's maturing, but still trying to figure out his way. So I really like seeing that milestone in his journey.
And correct me if I'm wrong, because I watched them back to back. This is the episode where Nog calls Jake a writer, right? And so this is a relationship now that's grown. They're not kids anymore. These are two young men finding their way in the world, and I thought that was a nice moment between the two of them, where it's like he's a cadet. Jake's now a writer. Like they're starting to become their adult selves, and so it's a nice moment. It's just a nice exchange between them. It's this episode,
actually,
right?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that, Robert. Actually, was that this is kind of our first glimpse, or one of our first glimpses into the direction of Nog's character. First, 10 episodes back, he tells Captain Sisko, I wanted to go into Starfleet Academy. Then in Little Green Men, he's going to Earth. This is the next step where we're actually seeing him in Starfleet Academy as a cadet. And I was wondering if you guys had a discussion at all about how are we going to take this character, or did it just kind of evolve organically?
I think it evolved organically. I mean, once the big discussion was, will he join? That he should join Starfleet. Mm-hmm. That was the big thing. And once we got to that point, we sort of thought it would be fun to just both let him get really into that, but also find out, hit some bumps along the road, and so that his wide-eyed enthusiasm, we could batter that up a little bit as he grows and matures. But I don't think there was like major discussion until it was time to break an episode and figure out where he was. And then it was like, oh, well, where's Nog now? Like, okay, he's on Earth. We should definitely use him. Let's figure out a way to like make him part of the big overall story, like, and get him into the middle of the action a little bit. So that's sort of where we were at. I don't think like right now we weren't thinking about him getting his leg blown off and going through PTSD. We didn't have, that wasn't in our minds yet. Although we did know we wanted him to have the enthusiasm of like a new American who joins the army. You know what I mean? Or like an immigrant kid who just wants to who just loves his new country so much and wants to be part of it and is just like super excited about it. And then to let the realities and the shades of gray sort of sink in over time.
Don't say Shades of Grey. That's like the worst TNG episode ever. That's the one that gives me nightmares.
Well, in their defense, that was the writer's strike that derailed them.
I know.
So I wanted to ask you, because last time we talked, you mentioned, Robert, that this was going to be the first, the opening of the season 4. So this was a 2-parter that was going to really, bust season 4 wide open.
Yeah.
And now we're seeing it in the middle, and I can see why it would be a season opener, because it's that well written and that well thought out. A lot of intertwining stories that kind of make sense as it goes on, right? Red Squad being one of them. What Defiant was doing with the Lakota.
Yeah.
So, but my question for you is basically, so when you push this episode back to the halfway point of the season, what do you do? Like, how are you pushing? Are you pushing everything back now? So season 5 season opener would have been the halfway point of this season. Do you know what I mean?
No, because look, we did 26 episodes a year, so you could move things back and not really. We still had 16 episodes to tell the same amount of story. It's not like, and a lot of the episodes are standalone or have a little tiny touch of continuity. So the big thing was, once we brought Worf in, we wanted to spend some time with Worf and the Klingons. So that we had Way of the Warrior and then like 6 episodes to sort of absorb Worf into the family and tell the story of the Klingons and the Cardassians and all that kind of stuff. And so that was really we carved out room for that. But I think the big beats over the story we would have told over the course of season 4 didn't change that much. And it was an organic process to make story in the show anyway. So we weren't like we didn't always know what the end of the season was going to be when we started writing it. The pantster versus plotter thing, we were sort of in the middle somewhere, where we were like, sometimes we were flying by the seat of our pants and sometimes we were plotting far ahead. And, but generally we tried to figure out what the end of the season was going to be like 4 or 5 episodes before we were writing it, but honestly, sometimes we were writing it and figuring it out as we were writing the finale.
Wow.
I mean, we just, again, like 5 writers, 26 episodes, we were running as fast as we could.
Yeah. We were talking about before we started recording about the difficulties of 26 episodes per year. Just sounds unbelievably difficult. But as you and Cirroc are saying, there was also a little bit more flexibility there where you can kind of just move an episode over. And it's true that I too can see why this would be a great season opener, because it basically changes the tone and the tenor of the entire show's story. Is now suddenly it's a more dire situation.
Yeah, but we also tend to do that in the middle of the season too. Like the McKee 1 and 2 are a mid-season two-parter, you know. So we did the Dias cast. Like a lot of those are mid-season, you know, Inferno's Light, Purgatory Shadow. A lot of the times we would do those big mid-season two-parters. And so when we realized we weren't going to do the season opener with this one, and we were going to do Way of the Warrior, that was our intention. Was like, we'll move this. It'll be the big mid-season two-parter that we've started to do more of. And that will be, it was like McKee was season 2 that we started that. So that was the logic. It was like, okay, it'll be our big mid-season one. But look, I mean, the places where it shows are the action sequences you don't see. Because there's a lot of action sequences that are implied in that show that you do not see. Like, you do not see Red Squad taking over that power plant. You do not see how Sisko got into Layton's office, right? You barely see the battle with the Defiant and Lakota. I mean, you see it, but it's not like it's just one ship against one ship. When there are people in the streets, you see a dozen Starfleet officers. There's no big like set action piece for Avery, you know. Had it been the season opener, like imagine some of the big fight sequences from Way of the Warrior, like Sisko trying to get into the sort of run and jump of Sisko trying to get into Layton's office. We just blew past all of that, you know.
Well, honestly, good.
Yeah, there
was so much story in this that if you spent all this time on the squabbles and the fight, just have Odo do the Vulcan neck pinch. We get it, because there's so much story in this episodes that you know, that other stuff would have been kind of just filler. But when we don't need filler, there was just too much going on.
Yeah, and look, we might not have had as much time for Joseph Sisko, right? And that would have been a tragedy.
What a highlight.
So it all worked out. It all worked out, you know.
Where did you guys shoot Joseph Sisko's restaurant, by the way?
That was on stage.
On stage, yeah.
Really?
Was that 17?
Yes, 17, I believe.
Yeah, so it was like we had two stages that had the major standing sets. Stage, I can't remember the numbers anymore. Four was ops and all the stuff, right? It was ops and the quarters and the docking ring and the habitat ring. We're all on 4. And then, was it 5 or what was the next one over?
It was 4, 17, and 18.
17. So 7, yeah. So then 17 was the promenade, and it took up the entire stage. So 18 would have been where we built Joseph Sisko's, and we would have built it like basically right next to the cave sets, because in the back of the stages there were all these cave sets. So a lot of time we would just build stuff like in front of those. That's what it was. Stage 18.
Man, I was picturing like New Orleans Square at Disneyland. Like I was there, dude. I was totally there.
I mean, they did a great job on those sets, man. We had a great crew, and they would build they built beautiful sets. I mean, to me now, like, especially seeing it like up-resed a little bit, not up-res, seeing it in 720 on a 4K TV, you know, it looks a little like, oh, okay, it looks a little setty. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't think most people would have noticed.
You know, one thing I think that Joseph Sisko adds to this storyline is the perspective from the common person, right? The non-Starfleet, right? The viewer. Like this is how it would affect us in our daily lives, as opposed to how it affects Starfleet personnel or whatnot.
Yeah, that was the intention for sure. You know.
Yeah, he was.
I mean, Nog shows the perspective of like a low-ranking Starfleet person who's trying to figure out what the hell's going on. Like Layton's betting they're all going to come along with him, right? And Joseph represents the civilian point of view. Again, Layton thinks everyone will be on board. you know, and in the end, neither of them are, you know.
You know, and you brought up another.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm sorry. You brought up the thing that you brought was the battle between Lofton and the president when Sisko came in and said, "Hey, you know, this is what's going on. You've been duped. You signed the orders, but he's taken the orders farther. He's issued Red Squad to do this thing and whatnot." I like the argument that you posed, which was, well, now that we've imposed this kind of a thing, I can't take it away from the people because they want it. They're calling for it. They, you know, and I thought that was an interesting point that you just brought up for contemplation.
Yeah, again, like the strongman complex works because people, especially people who are scared, tend to embrace it, you know, and that was sort of what we were trying to say. And like, how much could the president really steer things if people were terrified and there'd just been this blackout and people died and you know, there'd been a bombing and, you know, it's the old security versus freedom thing. It's the Benjamin Franklin thing all over again, right? I mean, that's
right.
That tug of
war. Have absolute
forever.
freedom, or you can have absolute security, but you can't have both. You know?
Yeah, I think Sisko said it really great when he said, "Paradise has never seemed so well armed."
Yeah, that's the line.
Yeah. If it's got guns everywhere, is it paradise anymore? If there's a Starfleet officer with a phaser rifle in every street corner, doesn't look like paradise, does it?
No.
That's touched upon later on too with Ryza, if I remember correctly, but we'll cover that one.
I won't be here for that. That's fine episode.
That's another thing, Robert. I was thinking
I only
about
show up
that.
for the ones I feel good about.
I was thinking about
that I really think didn't go well.
We've only got a season and a half with you left, man. I was thinking about that. I was already getting sad about it. But let's have you back on an episode you don't like.
Yeah, I only worked on 1 through 5. But I'll come back for Field of Fire. I did that in season 7.
All right.
But yeah, I should come on here and talk about an episode that didn't go so well sometimes, so I don't just show up when just for the parties. Sometimes I got to show up for the funerals too, right?
Yeah. Why did you do that? That sucked. This was terrible. Why did you pick that? Field some of the fire.
There are good reasons for it.
No, I really like this. It's funny too. Another just random coincidence is that I believe that they were talking about the president's speech on January 14th, which today is January 14th. So I just, like, you literally predicted it to the day.
I know these guys and their crystal balls, man.
It was just the day it was going to air, you know. We weren't like, again, like we're not like trying to like look forward in time to like, oh, there's going to be a presidential inauguration and things are going to get all crazy. And
who was the psychic out of your group? Come on, who was it?
No, that's the air date. Like a lot. If there's a date, if we mention a date on the show, right?
Okay.
And actually mention a date, it's usually the air date. But if we mention a time of year or a date on the show, it's usually right around the air date. So like the Bell riots took place in May because that's when the episodes aired. Like there wasn't any like there was.
Don't ruin this for us, Robert. Don't take this away from us.
No, look here. Let me just pull aside the curtain and you can see all the.
I was like, January 14th, really? Really?
Well, if we'd really been psychic, we would have made it the 6th, right?
Oh yeah. Right. No, but that's the day. That's the day we're recording. So I just thought it was just crazy. I'm watching this. Another thing I noticed was out of the names of the defectors that Sisko was looking at, one of them was Snowden, and I said, "Hey, that's an interesting last name. I've heard that name before."
I got that one too.
Did you catch that?
Oh yeah.
Well, speaking of catch, it's a Catch-22 reference. It's not a reference to. It's not a reference to Edward Snowden. It's a reference to the character from Catch-22. So is Orr. There's an Orr and a Snowden in the list.
It wasn't the hockey player, Bobby Orr?
No.
It's Orr and Snowden from Catch-22. They're two. I think Orr was Yossarian's tent mate. I think he was a pilot. And I feel like Snowden was the bombardier who gets plunged on the crap.
I love how you guys insert these things that nobody would ever know unless you said it.
Well, they're just little in jokes for the people who are paying attention. Before the internet, like they would just go by and no one would pay any attention to like the fact that you name a couple characters from Catch-22, and there's a couple characters. There's the Lakota and Bentine, and Bentine was like one of the people who fought at Little Bighorn, and the Lakota obviously were the other side. Yeah. So like there's little jokes like that. Like in Past Tense 1 and 2, a lot of the characters are named after either actors or characters from the Magnificent Seven for no particular reason. It's just like what we did. So
because every week you have to come up with names. Every week,
exactly. We have to come up with some names. So like the billionaire is named Chris Brenner. That's Yul Brenner, who played a character named Chris. So yeah, there's not like any deeper meaning necessarily. Like it's just whatever goofball references we decide to throw into the episode.
Yeah, but nobody's going to know that you're using the air date as the date, or you're picking stuff from characters from Catch-22. I mean, I love these insights because it just gives us a little insight on how you pulling stuff from different places.
Well, the air date, like people would, I think, have resonance with it because they would be like, oh, that's today or tomorrow, or that was yesterday. Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm watching the show live. No one's streaming anything 25 years ago. And so when we say January 14th, there's a pretty good chance you're watching it on January 14th. So it feels like now. It feels like it's happening in current time, and that was the reason we did that. The goofball naming is just the goofball naming. We're just like, whatever. Kids playing around and throwing in references. I feel like the girls that Sisko falls for, Neffy. I have no idea where Neffy came from.
Yeah, but Beaumont was a perfect name for New Orleans.
Yeah,
it's kind of a French name.
Zoe was my friend's girlfriend in high school. If you're watching this, Zoe, I hope you're doing well.
I'm sure she's watching.
No. Yeah, so we would just do stuff like that all the time. Just throw in little things that were like to amuse ourselves. I would throw in references to like obscure, like not video games, like board games and stuff like that too. There was a lot of that. Again, like we were just trying to come up with a name like on the spot. It's like, what do we want to name this character? Well, let's just name everyone after Catch-22. All right, that's easy. Just keep going.
So we only have a few minutes left. Sorry, Cirroc, you look like you're going to ask something.
Oh yeah, but I was going to just talk about the chain of command and how much emphasis was spent on just the chain of command. I just imagined that, Robert, that was kind of coming from your side of the experience.
Yeah, that probably was a little bit more for me. I mean, chain of command was something that was kind of like drilled into me a little bit when I was a kid. How things worked. And yeah, look, like Leighton is in a position. He's a 3-star admiral. Like he's in a position where he can pull this stuff off. And Sisko is a newly minted captain. And so it takes a lot. It's a lot harder for him to stand up to an admiral. Especially one that used to be his mentor. That's what we were trying to create, was a power dynamic between them. And then you see it between Sisko and Nog, who is a cadet. So he's like, I want to say that he's as far below Sisko as Sisko is below Leighton, but that's not true. Like Sisko's a little closer to Leighton in the ladder.
Leighton had 6 pips.
He had 3 pips.
3 on each side.
Yeah, but that's the same. He's 3 pips.
Well, Sisko's got 4, so I thought it was 6 altogether.
No, so Sisko's got 4. They're all filled in, right? So he's a full captain. And then when you become an admiral, there's a different. The bar looks a little different, and the pips look a little different, and those are admiral's pips, and they're like the next. Like then there's like theoretically 5 pips of those. So it's just like the stars, Got it. On a general's uniform.
Makes sense.
Yeah, Pippin ain't easy.
All right, here we go. Here we go.
Oh, well.
There it is. That's all I got.
Well played.
No, that's not all you got. I remember you made another one about pips a while back.
Yeah, I can't recall it.
Yeah. So we do have 1 minute left. There was the ending, I did want to bring that up really quickly because these are the kind of things that I notice now. When I was watching as a kid, I would notice like the aliens and the overall themes and the spaceship battles. But now I notice this, and it was just nice to see Joseph Sisko just welcoming everybody back in. And Robert, you talked about last week how you wanted that. He's a community man. You said, I can't remember whose father, I think it was Ira's father was kind of a community man.
Yeah.
And it really showed us that he comes in and he always has this thing that he says, I recommend this today. It's got a little bit of a kick, but it'll make you smile. And that kind of stuff, like that's a highlight for me nowadays.
We wanted to show, it was a way to show the win too, right?
Mm-hmm.
If Joseph Sisko can welcome back in his customers and there's not armed guards on the street, then Sisko won, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if we can have an inauguration, of some form, then the democracy is going, right? And hopefully they'll, DC will eventually be devoid of troops. Having 20,000 soldiers in the Capitol it's not a good thing, man. It's just not good. I mean, it may be necessary, but it's not good. And you want that to go away. Look, like when the protests, some looting, some rioting, when that stopped in LA and businesses opened up again, it felt like very hopeful.
Yeah.
And then they closed again. Then they closed again.
But to add, just to show how real what you guys wrote is, restaurants are a barometer for how society is functioning, right? Because we are experiencing them now with restaurants having limitations or being closed altogether. But they definitely give you a sense of how the community is getting together, how people feel. I thought
spoken like a true restaurateur and a community man.
Yeah, something that I've experienced. But Ryan, I thought you were going to say about the ending. The thing that was left as a question to me was when Admiral Layton was walking away and finally had been defeated. Sisko, he says to Sisko, like, I hope you made the right choice. And Sisko gives a look to the camera where he's not quite sure if he made the right choice, right? And I like the way you end episodes like that, where it's not so black and white. Yes, you're right. It's more up in the air. Might be right.
Yeah, when he said, I hope you made the right choice, you're right. Sisko gave a look that said, so do I.
Yes.
And we may have written him to say, so do I, and we may have then cut it because we didn't need to, because Avery just freaking delivered the line without saying the words. Or he may have even said the words and we cut them. I can't remember, honestly. But that happens sometimes, though, where you just you write a line and the actor says it and then he plays it as well. And you're like, well, it plays without the line. Let's just cut the line. And Avery is a terrific actor. And so that happened a lot, And it's better. Like if you can do it without that, it's just like the audience has to work a little harder, but in a good way. Yeah. Like what's going on with him? How would I feel in that situation? What would I say in response to that?
Or what's coming next? That's what I felt too. I'm like, well, what's the next episode? Like, is the next episode? Are they going to? Is it going to get worse or is it going to get better? So I think you leave us all kind of wanting more with those open-ended endings.
Yeah, sometimes it's nice to end an episode on an answer, but a lot of times it's nice to end an episode on a question. Which maybe we answer in the next episode, or maybe we never answer, and it's still up to the audience to decide. Let's
do the same. Will we be right back? No, but we do have to run. Robert, thank you so much, as always, for joining us and really giving us these insights that have been burning questions for 25 years. It's really cool, and we really appreciate you.
Fun to be here. It's always fun to talk about the show. I love it, and I love seeing you guys, so it's all good.
Thank you so much. You're right on schedule. January 14th, right on the
date. He's never going to let that down. He's going to see you in 20 years and be like, remember that time? So, great. Well, thanks very much, everybody else. Stick around. The answer is yes. We will be right back with the free-for-all. And we'll see you on the other side. on the 7th rule. Hey everybody, welcome back to the free-for-all. Mr. Robert Hewitt Wolfe has decided to stick around to hang out with all of these fine, beautiful people like Melissa Longo, Cirroc Lofton, Mr. Timothy Baum out in, I don't know what, Abu Dhabi? I don't know where that is.
Liverpool.
Same thing. Mr. Homer Frizzell. We have Katie Carr. We have Changeling TJ Jackson-Bey. We have Dr. Susan V. Gruner and Eve England out in Wales. How's everybody doing?
All right.
All's well.
Awesome. So we're just kind of, before we hit the record button, we were talking with Robert about the episode, asking him questions. Somebody said they did have a question. Who was that?
I have a question, actually.
Oh, Cirroc.
Yeah, I got a question.
Hey!
Well, you clarified for us about teleplay and written by credits. But the one thing I really wanted to know was the revisions. So we would have so many revisions of these scripts, right?
Yeah,
And
sorry about that.
Who gets credit for those?
No, why would you do so many revisions? Because sometimes we couldn't even figure out why it was being revised. What was the reason behind some of that?
I mean, it was just the way things were. A lot of it is because we published the first drafts as the pre-production draft, right? And so, like, because we were writing so fast that a lot of times all we had was like the very first raw script, and we were still refining it internally. So we would still do like a lot of revisions all through pre-production. Then we weren't always done with those revisions by the time production started. So then the production draft would come out and there would be still more revisions. But also we would still be getting notes from like Rick Berman in the studio and stuff like that into the production. They didn't always get all their notes in before we started producing, like before we started shooting.
Okay.
And then sometimes it was like, you know, there were practical considerations too. Like we were shooting something and someone was like, well, we can't do this. We have to do something different. Can you rewrite it? Or we can't, it's too long. Like we can't shoot all this. Can you cut like 3 pages out of it? And it's day 3 of production. So you got to cut 3 pages out of the 40% of the script, 50% of the script we haven't shot yet. So go and do that. And that's like, that's very common in television. So sometimes it was time, sometimes it was shooting practicality, sometimes it was last minute notes from above. And sometimes it was us going like, the scene still doesn't quite work for us. We need to fix it. So
okay.
It's a lot of different stuff. Or sometimes like actor availability, we'd have to rewrite stuff too, you know, like, well, I mean, Armin has a cold. He can't be in the scene. You know, Armin is sick. He can't be in the scene today. Can we move the scene or can we just reshoot? Can we change the scene so it's ROM instead, you know, something like that. Those things happen too.
Robert, I was just going to ask you, like, what was the most frequent note related to? Was it just about dialogue or was it about logistics? What was like when you did have to change things? What was it most frequently about?
Oh, it was so many different things. I would say the single biggest one was time. Script's too long, cut, you know, got to cut. Like that happens all the time. That's just part of television. Like the first draft could be like 60 pages long, but really the shooting script needed to be like 50. On Deep Space Nine, they had to be like 55 pages. And even that was too much to shoot sometimes, and we'd cut it some more. So that was number one. Number 2 was budget. So there was a lot of changes to cut budget, you know. So like in this 2-parter, as we were discussing, this was really supposed to be the season premiere. It became a mid-season show. That means we didn't have a bunch of extra money to spend because we'd already spent it on Way of the Warrior. So we had to cut a lot of action and we had to cut a lot of like extras and speaking roles and stuff like that. And just like, so we could produce it. So those are the two biggest. The 2 biggest things are time and money. But then I'd say number 3 was clarity. You know, a lot of the times Rick's notes and the notes from the studio are like, make this clearer. We don't understand what they're saying here. Like can you make this clearer, simpler? Can you say what the hell's going on here a little cleaner? That happens a lot too.
Yeah. And you guys would always like, you'd be able to keep up with it because I mean sometimes we couldn't. It's like if you had an updated script, it was like a rainbow of colors all in the script.
Well, we had assistants who would come in like with the pages and like file them all together, so the script was always current that we were working from. And then obviously the document would change. I think we used Word back in the day, but we had a template so, but a lot of times we would just write the changes on a piece of paper. Like we would take the physical script, write the changes down, cross things out, move things around, and then just hand them to, we used to have script typists, and then they would type. I would never type. And so the script typist would fix all the notes, they hand us back to us. It was a scramble, to be honest. And I felt bad it feels bad, especially now knowing what I know about how actors work. It sucked that you guys were always getting changes last minute. I think if we'd done less episodes, we would have done less of that to you,
Yeah, I remember many of those changes where you'd be filming, you go back to your trailer, and right on your trailer door, like on the step of the door, is the new scene that you're about to film, and it's completely caged. Like,
yeah. I have I've been doing this for a long time, and my joke is I want once in my career to get all the way through a script and shoot what they call first whites,
right?
Which are the very first script that you put into production. Like the first production draft is all white pages. It's just like, I've never managed it. I've gotten first blues, that's as close as you can get, because blues is the next color. It's like,
if you do it, will you be like, oh, white, man?
Yeah, no. I mean, let's not get carried away with some of that. I don't want to go some things they don't want to say, man.
You're right. That joke wasn't great, but it was all white.
Yeah, it was fine. It was fine.
Ryan, you're agonizing.
Right?
Please.
I may never accomplish that one. That one may never happen.
But you were about to explain the color coordination, because is there a real scale to this?
Yes.
Like blue,
there's a standard.
pink?
Yeah, there's a standard. When you make changes in a script in television and film, each new change is a different color, so you can help keep track. And there's a standard order of those colors. And I believe it is, blue, pink, yellow, green. And then it gets like crazy after that. And some shows only use like 4 or 5 colors, and they recycle those 4 or 5 colors. On Deep Space Nine, we used all the colors. We used like salmon and tan and cyan. Like, we used them all. We went through them like once or twice a script. It was brutal.
Tan is not a color.
Cherry.
Yeah, all these colors. I mean, I remember how many versions of yellows and hues of oranges.
Goldenrod. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm looking it up, but there is a specific order that it's supposed to go in. It's pink, blue. It's white, blue, pink, yellow, green, goldenrod, buff, salmon, cherry, tan, ivory, and then double white, and back to double blue. So white, blue, pink, yellow, green, goldenrod, buff, which is kind of like tan, salmon, which is sort of pink, cherry, which is like brighter pink, tan, which is not the same color as buff, ivory, which is not the same color as white, and then it goes all the way back. I don't think we used ivory, right? We used cherry. We used
I saw gold. We had gold.
Goldenrod. Yeah, we had goldenrod. Anyway, this is pretty deep in the weeds of the television business.
Yeah, a lot of colors.
We all need to know. We've all been wondering.
I wish I had a script handy. I would run, but I think I have some Deep Space Nine scripts original with all the colors in the garage, but I didn't pull it out for show and tell. I didn't know we were going to talk about the colors of scripts.
I'd like to see that one.
That'd be wonderful.
Go get them.
Go get them. All right, I'll be back. You talk among yourselves.
All right. So how about this? While Robert's gone getting the show and tell, there was something that popped up in this episode, and it was Joseph Sisko. I keep bringing him up, but I'm like upset. It's just one of these things where, like, when you first watch an episode, you notice certain things, and then when you watch it again later, something really sticks out. And Joseph Sisko really stuck out to me in these last 2 episodes. He mentions chopping up the okra to Jake Sisko, and that okra makes me I'm
tired of chopping up the okra.
Where we do it again? Do the look. Okra.
Yeah,
that was the look.
No, so okra makes me think of my grandmother who immigrated from Spain, and she loved okra. But that's all I really ever knew about okra, and I kind of want to know, what do you guys think? Okra, yay or nay? I mean, what do you?
I've never even heard
slimy.
of it.
It is slimy. I tried it recently. It's slimy.
Yeah.
It's a great
good.
Scrabble word.
So is tern. Tern.
It's good fried.
Yeah, I was gonna say fried okra. It's the only okra I've had.
And
Southern thing, that's for sure.
no, it's I've used a lot in Cajun food.
Creole too, I would bet.
Yeah. I just know Okra Winfrey. That's thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Malissa, thank you. Appreciate that.
Oh my god.
Yeah, Ryan's it's too much. Ryan. Sorry.
Don't.
No, this was. I'm like a proud papa. I'm like my eyes are tearing up.
Homer is not impressed. He's not.
Yeah.
No. But keep trying. No, don't.
Keep trying.
But don't.
You see,
Why the
Eve.
blazer?
I just thought I'd throw it on. Thought there might be a guest, so I wanted to be presentable.
But look at the shirt
He
under
wanted
the vest.
Outclass us all. That's all. Yeah, very nice.
Thank you guys, all
Nice.
of you, for for everything. I mean, we are the reason we're here, and all of you have been just so supportive. So happy anniversary, man! Love all of you, and couldn't do it without you. Malissa, thank you for everything.
So my earliest recollection of okra is the Campbell's chicken gumbo soup. Pretty sure it's in there. I had no idea what it was.
I bet it is.
Isn't the person that monster from Dark Crystal called Okra or something?
Yeah.
Olgra.
Mother Okra.
Olgra.
Mother Okra.
Good knowledge, Eve. Also,
Well,
Free Willy was an okra too, right? Orca. It's orca. It's a killer whales and orca. So I didn't think I was going to be 0 for 10 on this one. Jesus.
Aren't they the black and white ones?
Yeah, killer whales.
Yeah.
Everybody stopped. They're like, "You get it? Do you? I don't."
I got it. It just wasn't really.
To acknowledge it.
Yeah. No.
Well,
Thank
I
you,
wore a
guys.
special dress for today.
Let's see it.
I like.
It's cats, but they're Star Trek cats.
Nice.
Oh my god!
You see?
Oh,
Right there.
yeah. Oh, look at the Picard.
Don't you mean the Picat?
Oh, very good. Very good.
Oh, nice.
No Orgon?
That is beautiful. That looks like
Nice dress, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need a Hawaiian shirt out of that.
Yes.
So, Robert, all you missed was us talking about okra, and then Cirroc started talking about important and poignant things to Malissa, and then Homer brought it back to okra. So,
I did.
Anyway, so you got something to show us?
I do. I have my copy
Wow.
of the original shooting script for Homefront.
Oh, wow.
there it is.
Nice.
And so, we did good on this one. This is only we only went to green on this one. So,
Oh wow.
see, I think you can see the revisions, right?
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Blue, pink,
Wow.
yellow, green, and then this is this is the shooting script. Final draft was October, so that tells you how far ahead we shot. And then you can see as I flip through it, like the different colors of pages representing the different revisions, right?
Okay.
And then see these folded back pages? So the folded back pages would be the original page that we replaced. And sometimes it would even say why, although this one doesn't. Let me see if I can find a page with some notes on it. Not always, we wouldn't always have the folded back pages, but sometimes we would. No.
And would everyone have the folded back pages, or
No,
just if you're doing the teleplay?
I would only keep them if I were writing the script myself, and only if I felt like I needed them for reference for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So here's some stuff that I don't know why it's like this. All right. So I don't know if you can see this or not, but this is kind of changes that would come through sometimes. Like you'd think that Admiral could spare you for a few hours a day, and someone, I think this might be Rick Berman's handwriting, you'd think that Admiral Layton could spare you for a few days. So he wanted the clarity of like, we're specifically referring to Admiral Layton.
Oh, wait, hold that for a second. There we go.
Got it?
Yeah.
So you can
Right.
see that. Gallivanting may be misspelled. I have no idea. That might be
It
why
is,
that note
yeah.
there.
It's an A.
Yeah. So production change. Can you see this?
Yeah.
See how it says Odo morphs, the gull morphs into Odo?
Yeah.
And how it says that Bentine is off camera?
Mm-hmm.
And then we change it to the seagull begins morphing into Odo, and then Bentine is on camera. So why? Because a partial morph is less expensive than a full morph. So if you just see the seagull start to turn to goo, and then
That's
you cut to
good enough.
Bentine, good enough. Then you cut back, and maybe you see Odo finishing his morph. We've just saved $5,000. So that's the kind of thing.
That's awesome.
And
Wow.
time. And you said that that's the shooting script that you're shooting in October, and this thing premiered January 8th. So what you're talking about is 2 months or less of post.
We have about a month of post.
Wow.
Yeah, about a month of post. Well, there was more
That's
because
tight.
of effects and stuff like that, but the actual cutting to get to the final cut was maybe a month at the most. And then if you look at the spine, you can kind of see all the different colors, right?
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah.
There, that's it. Show and tell's over.
Wow, what a
Thank
treasure.
you so much.
Definitely a treasure.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, no
Yes,
problem. It's a
thank
little stain from sitting in my garage for 25 years, but it's not in too bad shape.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen a script like that.
Yes, Sue, go ahead.
It's probably been asked a million times, but was each episode supposed to be 4 days of production or 5 days of I'm talking about before all the other stuff, but how much time did each episode have?
To shoot.
Yes.
7 or 7.5 days, right, Cirroc?
Yeah. 7 days per script. Yeah.
7 days per script. Sometimes 7.5. Sometimes 6.5 if it was a simple script.
Did they get a day off in between scripts?
They got weekends off. Sometimes they didn't even get an hour off between scripts because sometimes
No, here I'm thinking a 5-day work week. So that's
we did. We had a 5-day work week.
I get it. Okay.
We never shot on Saturday on Deep Space Nine, right?
Not unless it was in the middle of the night, Friday night. I carried it early Saturday morning, but that was about it.
Which is called a fratter day in the TV business. When you start shooting on Friday afternoon and you finish at dawn on Saturday morning is a fratter day. We didn't do a ton of those.
26 episodes is a ton of episodes.
Right.
Yeah.
So 7 days an episode, 26 episodes a year is 182 shooting days a year divided by 5 shooting days a week is 37 weeks a year they were shooting. 2 weeks off for Christmas. And then that leaves, like, you guys got about 12 weeks off over the summer hiatus.
Yeah.
About 12 weeks off for summer hiatus. The writers got like 2 weeks off for summer hiatus, maybe 3. And we got like a week and a half off for Christmas. And that was it. So, yeah. And sometimes they would, like when we did a half day, if we shot a 7.5 day episode and a 6.5 day episode, they'd have to change episodes in the middle of the day. Or there'd be 2 episodes shooting simultaneously. And sometimes actors would have to go back and forth between those on the same day.
Yes.
Wow.
It's a crazy business. This business of show.
Right.
And you guys had long days too, right? I mean, because if the script isn't done, you don't go home.
Well, you can go home and write at home.
Yeah. Okay.
the actors and crews days were longer than ours at work. Like you guys would have 14, 15-hour days sometimes, right, Cirroc?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, longer than that.
Yeah.
Longer than that. 16 to 18-hour days sometimes.
Yeah.
That's huge. That's a long time to be at work.
20. Like think about like Aron or Armin. Take that 18-hour day and then put a half an hour to take your makeup off and 2 hours to put your makeup on.
Ugh.
It's like, and then 8 hours later, what's the legal turnaround? Was 8 or was it 12?
8 hours, yeah.
8 hours later.
It was a 10-hour turnaround, but they could force you up till 8.
Right.
If they paid.
So that'd pay you a little extra. But if they didn't pay you extra, 10 hours after the day you walk 10 hours after the minute you walk off the set, you had to be back on the set if you were an actor. And if they paid you extra, it had to be 8 hours. So you still had to drive home, try to like throw some food into your belly, take a shower, go to bed, wake up, get back there, right? And so that was crazy.
And this is all in LA, right?
Yeah, all in LA. And
So
now
you
the
have
writers,
that-
we didn't have to work those crazy hours at work. We would go home and keep working. So
you
it'd
have
be
to
like,
drive in
oh,
that
it's 7
traffic?
o'clock. You can go home now. You still have to write 10 pages before you go to sleep. So, see you tomorrow at 9. And we'd go home and we'd write our pages sometimes.
So you would have to leave at like 5 o'clock in the morning to be at work at 9. Because when I think of LA, I think of traffic.
It's not that
No, not at
It's pretty bad, but it's not 4 hours.
4 hours.
No,
It takes me about a half an hour to get from my house to Paramount. What about you, Cirroc?
That's not too bad.
Yeah, I lived on Melrose.
You walk to
in
work.
West Hollywood. Yeah, I could have technically. I mean, I could have biked definitely.
You guys are pretty close. Sue, the basic rule of thumb in LA, generally, unless you happen to be pretty close to the thing, is it's going to be an hour or hour and a half. If you're anywhere under an hour, you use the word only before.
Yeah.
It's only 50 minutes. It's only 45.
Yeah.
You went to Fairfax High?
I did. Yeah, I went to Fairfax.
So school was right there too.
School was right there for me. But, people always ask about watching the episodes, and that was part of the reason we didn't have the time to watch the episodes, because of the work schedule. And when you finally do have a break, you're like trying to catch up on life stuff, right? Like laundry and whatever else the hell you got to do.
How did you, what year of high school did the show end for you? Or were you, was it all through high school?
It was all through high school for me. Yeah. I started in junior high school and went all the way through junior to high school and up until my first couple of years at UCLA.
Right. So,
yeah, I started UCLA in 97.
Right. How did you were on the Fairfax High basketball team for a while?
Yeah, what?
How did that work out? Like, how did you practice? Did you have time for practice and stuff like that?
Yeah, I had my coach, Coach Katani, was a really good coach, and he made exceptions for me. He allowed me to miss certain practices. He allowed me to show up at the game and not be there with the team on the bus. So there were little things that he allowed me to do so that I was able to play basketball. So I'm really grateful for that. But yeah, I was playing basketball. I was the head of the chess club, and I was taking AP classes.
Wow.
I love all this behind the scenes.
We were
love the other stuff.
You probably don't know it, but we were all tremendously proud of you, man. Just like how seriously you took your academics, how hard you worked at school, on the team, and all this, like that you were even able to have any kind of semblance of a normal teenage years, Yeah. I think it was something that, I mean, we all, I don't know, man, we watched you grow up in front of our eyes, and we were all, we didn't get to see you in person as much, but we were very proud of all the hard work you did.
I felt the love, and I really felt the support. And, guys that are not here today, guys like Michael Pillar, they really showed me a lot of love. So I felt the support. I also felt like Avery was in my corner fighting for me and really being my advocate, my parent on the set. So I was in a good position, and I'm thankful that I actually had some really great studio teachers that helped me kind of navigate that, and take my lesson plan from school and talk to my teachers. And so it was a really good setup for me. And I wanted to go to school so I didn't miss out on having kind of a normal childhood.
Yeah.
So that was why I kind of tried to do the back and forth, and it worked out.
Yeah. Did you try to walk on at UCLA? We're both Bruins. We both went to UCLA. So did you try to walk on?
Yeah, I was encouraged to walk on by a guy named Bob Myers, who is now the
way
general manager of the
Golden State Warriors.
Yeah. So Bob Myers is a walk-on at UCLA. They won the championship with Toby Bailey and Ed O'Bannon and those guys. And when I first got there, he was really nice to me, and he actually encouraged me to walk on. I was going to, but that was the year that Jim Herrick got caught up in the NCAA scandal and Steve Lavin was brought up to be the head coach, and it was a lot of drama going on. So I actually stayed away from it because I didn't want to be involved. And but no, I could have walked on. I actually played a lot with the team. I just never walked on. I thought it would be too much to play college basketball at Division I and try to be doing Star Trek.
Yeah, it's a lot, man. I mean, well, go Bruins.
Go Bruins.
Go Warriors.
Go
Sure.
Warriors.
I grew up in the Bay Area. Sure. I'm not. I got no problem with that.
Nice, that's
Are you
right,
a Bruins fan? Boston Bruins?
No. UCLA Bruins.
Oh, I'm like,
UCLA
wait a minute.
Bruins.
I'm so confused.
The other Bruins, the college Bruins.
I want to point out the Pacers beat Golden State the other night.
I'm aware there was an 11-0 run at the end there that we don't have to.
Well,
right,
and
you win.
As of last year, there's sportsbook available in Indiana, so I won $132 on that game.
Wow,
pays for my beer this week. So
hope it pays for your beer for more than 1 week. That's a lot of beer.
I drink expensive German beer, so
as long as it's expensive beer, as long as it's not a volume business.
Yeah. Beers.
Well, okay.
You got me.
Well, guys, we do have to run. We have less than 1 minute left, but again, a very special thanks to Mr. Robert HEWITT WOLFE, who's always great to the show of Deep Space Nine and always great to our show as well. I do want to give also a very special thanks to Carmen Shamwell, PJ Tomas, Mr. TJ Jackson-Bey, Bill Victor Arucan.
Arucan.
There it is. Yvette Blackmon, Homer Frizzell, Eve England, and Marie Segal, Titus Mohler, Tim Baum, Susan V. Gruner, Robert Weisberg, and Darlena Marie. Thanks, guys, very much. Any final goodbyes?
Thank you for everybody.
Thank you so much, Robert, for
Thank you,
taking
Robert.
the time.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
thank you for hanging out with us. This was great.
And thank you for
As a
showing
treat.
us the script.
I was glad I found it. I wasn't sure that they would be there.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Great.
Robert said he will be sending it out to our number one fan. No, he didn't.
No, I will not.
I was just about to say, when you get tired of having it, then I will give you my address and then I will have it.
I should do something with these someday. All right, guys. Take care. I'm going to go.
Thanks very much, guys.
Thanks a lot.
Always remember the seventh rule.